Magic mirror on the wall, who's the fairest one of all? Hello and welcome to my latest video. I am about to start a new project, however I have a bit of a problem first. That's my sewing machine. This is where I cut things, and this is very wet paint. Someone has been banished for stepping on the wet paint too many times. I'm going to start an entirely thrifted Snow White costume. I'm going to be using the pattern from Nikita's book. However, it's not going to be inspired by this lovely costume. I'm just, working with materials that I found. Also, this is my mom's wedding dress, not mine. That's for a future project. Enjoy these clips of local wildlife. I have cleaned up the paint mess, so it's time to show you what I got. Hi, buddy. He's gonna get a bath and a haircut later. He's not gonna like it. I got this lovely blue dress at the Salvation Army for $6. It's a bit tight, and that slit splits in a second. I got this yellow number at a garage sale for $2, and a $4 tablecloth for the cape. I didn't have enough apple fabric for the lining, so I also used some clashing princess fabric. Ow. Which looks awful, but nobody has to know that. Except for you. I used the blue skirt fabric for the bodice. I probably should have used some interfacing on this because it's kind of flimsy. I thought I had some fabric with Snow White on it for the lining, but I guess I used it all on something else. I just took a break to walk the dogs a little bit early because we are having a storm. And I didn't want to get electrocuted. Also, a lot of the times we have big storms, we end up losing power. So I'm a little bit nervous to start sewing. Miss Emmy does not like storms. I feel like there's a pretty good chance we're going to lose power. What do you think? I'm trying to iron, by the way. After ironing the pieces, I pinned them together by matching up the notches and not getting distracted by the lightning flashes. See? Very nervous about the storm. Me and my pinning buddy kept on going assembling the bodice. Judah is not afraid of storms because he is mostly deaf and he can't hear them. I also made some gold piping by cutting 2-inch strips on the bias and stitching a cord in with a zipper foot. This goes in the center front seam. Some of the park dresses have piping on the front 3 seams, but I was basing my costume off the original film. They are snuggling. This never happens. I pressed all my seams open under the watchful eyes of my sewing assistants. I really hope you guys can see all the lightning strikes. I stitched more piping along the top and bottom edge. The bottom looked nice, but the top was covered by the cape, so it really wasn't necessary. I stitched down the seam allowances on the lining for boning channels. We don't use the sewing balcony right now. You a sleepy girl, Emmy? I pinned the lining to the fashion fabric along the top edge and the side edges, leaving the bottom open for turning. I added 1/4 inch plastic boning to each of the boning channels. I cut them 1/2 inch shorter than the seam for the 1/2 inch seam allowance along the bottom edge as the top was already closed. I used my machine to close the boning channels and trap the boning forever. I flipped it right side out and used my high-tech poking chopstick to get the corners nice and sharp. I folded the piping on the bottom edge to the inside and matched up the lining to make a nice, neatly finished edge for the bodice. I sewed this closed with a somewhat invisible stitch. And when I went to put in the grommets, things went very wrong. Not like this wrong. This is a new kind of wrong. It's a good thing there's a cape on the back. That one went a little bit wonky. I was kind of wondering if my grommet crest is broken because it used to hold the top part. I see the problem. This bit is not sticking out anymore, so I was right. Well, I broke my grommet press, and I'm just gonna go to bed now because this is just not my day. It is next morning now, and I have finished the bodice. I can't say the grommet installation went that well, but it's a good thing there's a cape on the back. I was looking at pictures of the original costume, And her sleeves are a much lighter color blue. And I happen to have a dress that's just about the exact right color. However, this is my prom dress. Instead of making a decision about that, I'm gonna start on the skirt. I am also starting the embroidery for the Evil Queen crown. I picked off the butt bow before folding the bow flaps out of the way for cutting. I just needed the skirt part. Also, I finally got the replacement for my favorite scissors. It only took like a year for me to get around to it. I also got a rotary blade that hasn't hit tile, and it makes a huge difference. The giant bow flaps have got to go. Way too 80s. So I ripped both those seams out entirely before stitching them back together, but in a much more my style way. I also ran a gathering stitch on the top edge, which is just a long straight stitch. I matched my skirt center with the new waistband I made from a bow flap. I adjusted the gathers neatly and pinned them in place. I also added the zipper back in, but this is the top part since I cut through the bottom. I folded the waistband over some band roll for stiffness. And stitched this down with a whimsical stitch, because why not? With the bodice and the skirt finished, I think today I'm going to work on the sleeves. And after posting an Instagram poll about whether I should use my old prom dress or not, I found an even better color match. So I guess I'm not going to use that. Well, I bought this secondhand for making a giant Cinderella dress because I bought 10 yards, but I think I can spare enough for some sleeves. Also, half my crown is done, so now it's time to do the other half. To make the puffy sleeves, I exaggerated the outside sleeve while leaving the lining normal. I thought about stuffing them, but I liked them fine without it. Also, look at my new rotary blade! Isn't it fantastic? For the red teardrops, I cut stitch witchery and red satin left over from my thrift flip Corella project, which I made from 2 thrifted bridesmaids dresses before the movie came out, and wow did I nail this project. Stitch witchery is a fusible interfacing that bonds 2 pieces of fabric when ironed. Ta-da! Bonded! I could have left them like this, but I did a satin stitch around the edges. A satin stitch is a zigzag stitch with lots of width and minimal length, and it gives a neat finish. My crown is done, and just look at how gorgeous this is. I made a sleeve cuff from the same thrifted gold as the piping. The gold fabric came from a garage sale where I basically met my twin in all of my hobbies, interests, and career. That was a little weird, but also really cool. Too bad she was having a garage sale because she was moving away. Things got a little confusing for the lining, but eventually I got it sorted out. I gathered the lower sleeve to fit the cuff. I pinned the outer sleeve to the bodice, gathering it at the top edge to fit the arm side, and stitched that with my machine. I didn't want any raw edges showing, so I hand-stitched the lining to cover the seam. Time for the collar! I grabbed this secondhand lace, which is definitely polyester, but otherwise was perfect. I cut out Nikita's collar pattern from 1 layer of lace. I stitched 3 ribbon boning channels to keep the collar up, as well as a bias tape boning channel at the edge. I added the collar facing and some snaps to keep it in place. On this stormy day, I really didn't feel like working on my costume, so I made some dwarf dog costumes. I thoughtfully picked a character for each dog. Emmy was grumpy because she always gives me grumpy looks when modeling, until she gets her treat. And I picked Dopey for Judo because, well, there's nothing but fluff in that cute little head of his. I draped the cape on my dress form, matching the neckline to the dress. Don't look at my elbow. I also cut a facing for the neck area, which I pinned to the cape. This fabric frays like crazy, and I didn't have enough red serger thread, so I ran a zigzag stitch along the edge to contain some of that mess. I hemmed it by folding the edge over once. Later I added some drape to make the front look better. want to see how I made this? Check out the video linked above. Also, check out this free poison apple SVG in my blog. That is all for this video. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like button and subscribe. I kind of feel like having a snack. I actually really do need a snack, but I can't eat my prop yet. Very silly. That is all for this video. Bird in the tree. Emmy, stay in the fence. I'm actually really hungry.